So I think what is going to happen is the US dollar will lose value. We'll see hyperinflation. It'll get absolutely crushed. We'll see other countries like the BRICS nation plus, right? All these nations ditch the US dollar as the global reserve currency. They'll put some other kind of basket of currencies, whether it be gold, silver, some cryptos, a bunch of things, and then, ESDRs, things like that. Then eventually they will have crypto in the middle, and then that will be the world reserve currency. And no one country, like, imagine being a country, you don't want to be the world reserve currency, like anyone other than the US, because then you have a target on your back, right? And then you're just in the same problem as the US. So wouldn't it be better if there was no world reserve currency? It was just, a crypto or a basket of things. And then, all these countries are going to have their own stable coin, and it'll have to be pegged one-to-one backed proof of reserves. And then when people are buying stable coins, it's just going to increase the value. So like I said, I think we'll see probably a big crash in the US dollar as a result of, loss of the petrodollar and the global reserve currency, and hyperinflation more than likely. And then on its, descent, when it crashes, we'll probably see the new system ushered in. They're not going to create a new system overnight. They'll probably have it run parallel where, you'll still be able to have cash, you'll still be able to do this, but they'll offer incentives like UBI, universal basic income.
Hi, everyone. So today we have an esteemed guest. Rod, can you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Rod Murray. I'm the founder of POW Group, so Pursuit of Wealth. Essentially, we focus primarily on MJ stocks, crypto assets. We also focus on a lot of the technicals and also interviews. That's something that we've been incorporating a lot into the channel. But I come from a technical background. I used to work in graphic design. I used to do website development, app development. Wasn't a whole lot of work in that, so I transitioned over to the financial services industry. I also worked for over 12 years in the managed services industry in IT, so I'm very strong in technicals. So I've got my hands in quite a few different things, but essentially with POW Group, we're a community of about 50 private members, and then we also have YouTube channel, X, a bunch of different social media accounts. So we've got a bit of following of around 25,000 people. So that's a little bit about me and POW Group and where I came from. So just because Bitcoin was first doesn't mean it's going to be last. Just because dial-up internet was first doesn't mean dial-up internet was the one that, we didn't just stop innovating at dial-up internet, right? We ran it through the phone system, and then eventually we created broadband internet and TSL and now fiber optics, right? So information is moving at the speed of light. Now we're transitioning to the monetization of that, where we're talking about money moving at the speed of light, where we can send money around the world just as quickly as we can in email.
You mentioned Bitcoin is like a dial-up technology, which in many ways it is like the very basis of the blockchain, or like the use of blockchain for transferring money. But like the Bitcoin itself haven't developed much, but the protocols on top, like for example, Lightning, has already made it very much usable compared to the base layer. So you think because of this, maybe Bitcoin like have a second life?
I mean, yeah, I don't know if they're going to kill it completely. Like, I think there's room for all. Like, if we're going to change how the whole financial system works, it's going to be a multi-chain ledger and multi-chain world, right? It's not going to be Bitcoin to rule them all. It's not going to be one coin to rule them all, one project to rule them all. Like, yes, there's different scaling solutions for all these layer one protocols, but at the end of the day, it's about use case and utility. What problem is it solving? And, with Bitcoin, the Lightning Network, that's a layer two scaling solution. But, I've seen videos, I've heard reports of people that, it's a nightmare. Sometimes their transaction would get lost. They don't know where it went. And then they have to wait, like, they're trying to buy something at a store and they're waiting. Even like we live in an instant gratification world. If people don't have you imagine going to pay for something and you couldn't pay for your coffee within 5 seconds or 10 seconds, like people are going to get really, really annoyed. So if you have
Yeah, I mean,
to
if you
sit
are
there and wait for
queuing, I think that,
confirmations,
yeah, the base layer I think is unusable as like a day-to-day transactions. It could be
yeah.
like, for example, for
And
sizable amounts, like you see these people moving billions of dollars. So
yeah,
obviously it makes sense like for reserves and for big companies like MicroStrategy, what they are doing.
yeah.
But
And the Lightning Network, there was a video, I can't remember exactly which person posted it, but I'll have to give him credit. He posted it and he was doing a tutorial of how the Bitcoin Lightning Network worked. And he's like, oh, of course, the one time it doesn't work while I'm recording it, and to me, it's just, and there's other like spend the bits, right? There's
but
different
just to be
ways.
fair, to be fair, Bitcoin Lightning has been almost experimental until 2023. Basically, last year,
Yeah.
it only started to actually have full utility. So previously, it was like almost like an experiment. Right now, it's actually very usable. It only has like one issue left, which is called liquidity. So basically, when you open a channel like to send to someone money, you need to have enough liquidity, which
Hmm.
sounds a no-brainer, but yeah, it's an issue right now. Like you have
Hmm.
to have enough liquidity just to send to someone, or
Right.
I'm sorry, just to receive. Like let's say, for example, someone is sending you money and your bank account is at zero, you should be able to receive money, right? But
Yeah.
in Bitcoin Lightning, no, you have to have liquidity first for you to receive
Right.
money, which is a bit counterintuitive. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think, but other than that, I think it's right now is actually very, very practical. But yeah,
Right.
but obviously other cryptos also like at the base layer itself, they are comparable to Lightning. So
Right.
obviously,
Yeah, and I mean, I don't, I'm not a lightning expert to be completely honest with you and fully transparent, but I've been told that it's very centralized. You're relying on, a couple of parties. Even the mining is heavily controlled by, a few mining pools on Bitcoin. So arguably more centralized than a lot of other projects. If you look at like Flare Networks, for example, like with the way that they rolled out their project, it started like pretty much everything starts off centralized though, right? But before they actually made the blockchain go live, they worked on getting it decentralized. And I think with Bitcoin Network, there's going to be like, we don't just stop innovating, right? We don't just create Bitcoin and then say this is good enough, right? We're humans. We always want to innovate. We always want something better, and not just it's also just because we feel good, right? And we feel successful, and we want to continue to innovate and to be challenged, right? So, like I said, I think there's going to be multiple projects, and for me, it's just Bitcoin. It's trying to be what some other projects can already do at the base layer, like you said, right? Some other cryptos at layer one don't need that scaling solution. It's just it was already designed that way from inception. So, and again, it's kind of like they don't really know what they want Bitcoin to be. At first, it was supposed to be a peer-to-peer cash system, and then they were like, well, that kind of failed. So now we're going to call it digital gold, which at the end of the day, I don't think anything's better than actual gold, right? It's like God's money, right? But at the end of the day, yeah, I think everything's going to have a purpose. And I think that in order to change the world, we're talking quadrillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of money around the world. So, we're going to need the whole system, right? And if you look at Bitcoin, it's only a little over $1 trillion market cap. We're talking uh, tens and hundreds of trillions of dollars, quadrillion dollars if you get into the derivatives market. So if we're really going to change the financial system, I'm not tribalistic to one particular project or coin. I want them all to do well because at the end of the day, all boats rise together. And like I said, we're going to need the whole ecosystem to really change how money works around the world.
perfect. So if you like, I see also like you have like because for myself, just to be honest, like I'm not very trusting of the system. Maybe it could be because of my geolocation. Like I'm in Southeast Asia, so it's here we don't have as efficient or like not to say actually it's very efficient here for transactions, almost like free. And it's instant. It might be even faster like the US, but like and we have mobile payments and all this, but like maybe we don't have as holistic solutions. Like for example, you have a very strong in North America, you have a very strong stock market and all these financial assets and vehicles. We don't have that here. So maybe for us, we are a bit pessimistic about this traditional system, and we are more optimistic about the crypto system. That's why you can see here like millions of holders of crypto.
Absolutely.
The adoption is widespread. I think in the US also, and maybe in
Yep.
Canada, but maybe here the people look at it as like a solution, an actual solution for a lot of things, especially like, for example, they could look at Bitcoin. So when they say digital gold, they could look at it for saving. Obviously, here people like still hold gold, the physical gold, but this is like, especially for the younger generation, they feel like maybe gold is like not very practical.
Right.
So the something like Bitcoin is much more practical, and mostly they don't subscribe a lot. Like to be honest, they don't subscribe a lot to the decentralization narrative because they would leave this Bitcoin in the exchanges.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, most
Yeah.
people would just like, let's be frank, the most people will just leave it on exchanges. So they don't subscribe to all this self custody, even though I like
Yeah.
self custody, but we have to be realistic. So
They
yeah,
just want it to work, be cheap, easy to use. And with
exactly.
that being said, what do you guys use there? Or is it like WeChat or Alipay or what's
So here we have something called Chris. It's like actually I think something that's related, like let's say the predecessor of the like preparation for the CBDCs. So it's like one
Okay.
system that's actually started, I think, in Indonesia here, and then right now it's you can use this same system to pay without almost like instantly in 4 countries. So imagine
Gotcha.
you have your bank accounts. You don't need to open a new bank account. You don't need to download a new app. You don't need to do anything. Just open your bank app in any of these 4 countries. I think Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand, and
Okay.
Indonesia. And then you
That's
just
awesome.
basically scan a code, QR code, you're done. So it's similar to the idea of WeChat, but it's like transcending countries and also transcending banks. So you don't have like, for example, for WeChat, you pay WeChat to WeChat. It's the same company,
Right.
but this system is like much more elaborate and yeah, so it's instant and it's
Okay,
almost
gotcha.
free. So yeah, so I think that the people, but people are still worried because for example, we had the financial crisis like in 1998, in
Yep.
the Asian crisis, and we had like the huge drop, huge inflation in the currencies, the fiat currencies. So I think you didn't
Hyperinflation.
have
Yeah.
that much. I think for you right now, the US dollar especially, there is like huge inflation relatively compared to previous years, but
Hmm.
it's still manageable. But I suspect that it might actually has like more inflation coming few years. So
Yeah.
you think that
Yeah, and a
maybe
lot of their numbers are skewed, right? They're not factoring in certain traditional things that they
exactly.
normally were factoring in, and yeah, they're getting. I'm in Canada, but they're getting inflation down to around that 2% goal in the U.S. But yeah, I think there's a lot more under the hood than what we really see in the numbers that they let on. But yeah, I think that we probably haven't seen the worst of it yet.
I see. So you think like having like this sentiment, do you think that this will affect the crypto market like in a way as an alternative, or still people will rely like especially in North America?
This episode is sponsored by DegreeSign.
CoinExams platform was purpose-built by DegreeSign to be one of the best-performing platforms in the crypto space.
DegreeSign is an agency developing web products with a long experience of building products from scratch for maximum performance and stability.
Start today. Just email make@degreesign.com.
Will the people still, you're feeling that they are more reliant still on the traditional system, or they will shift towards this new tokenization and all this new?
That's a great question. I think about this a lot, actually. When you think about it, again, if you're working with the system, you're probably going to like, let's be honest, that China can ban crypto. China has banned Bitcoin multiple times. Any country could ban any crypto. They can't shut it down because you'd have to shut down the internet. You'd have to shut down, you know, computers all the way around the world, right? So what we did was we started same thing with the internet, same thing with driving a car. We regulate the activities, right? And then even if you get caught using a VPN in certain parts of the world, it can be punishable by criminal charges, right? So you can regulate the activities, but the companies that are working with the system, with the governments, like governments aren't going to give up their sovereign rights and their value, right? Their money, their value system, their monetary system. They're going to bring out, like to quote Brad Garlinghouse, I think it was, they're going to bring out the tanks and the guns before they would ever let that happen. So if you work with the incumbents, work with the system, and ultimately that's going to make the big three or the big five currencies, your the US dollar, the yen, the won, the euro, the pound, it's going to make them more valuable because what is a stable coin? A stable coin is pegged and is stable to a currency, right? To one of these countries' currencies. So if you use the US dollar as an example, like in the BRICS nations trying to dethrone the US dollar and the petrodollar and trying to, basically put the crypto, I think, is going to be in the middle and it'll be a bridge, right? There'll be no one country, you won't have to trust anyone. You're just trusting and relying on mathematics and computer code. There's no greed, there's no errors, right? It's just mathematics and, the law of math. And then, we're going to have that decentralized middle bridge, between all of these countries. Because even when you exchange money for another currency, one currency for another, it's basically based on, the GDP and the strength of the economy. And what if a country is lying to you about the strength of their underlying currency, right? It's like they say that it's worth, but it could be much less, right? So you're relying on that or Nostro Vostro accounts or, all these pre-funding and locked up liquidity. It's going to help with that. But then it's also going to increase the value of these currencies because like I said, for the US dollar and a stable coin USDT or USDC, they're pegged to the US dollar. So let's say that 2 billion people that I mentioned that were unbanked or underbanked, if they come into the new financial system and they want to sell their crypto, right? They're up 100% or 1,000% and they want to sell. I want to lock in my gains and I don't want to hold any cryptos because they're probably going to go into a bear market and drop 80% or 60%. So what are they going to switch to? They're going to switch to USDT, USDC, right? And then what does the USDC have to do underlying from that? It has to buy digital versions of the US dollar, right? It has to have proof of reserves. It has to buy the US dollar and peg it 1-to-1. So if we're bringing in all these new people that are, financial inclusion and bringing in all these people that weren't part of the financial system, most people want to own dollars. They're going to own a stable coin. It's going to be pegged to the US dollar. It's going to make the US dollar even more valuable. So I think what is going to happen is the US dollar will lose value. We'll see hyperinflation. It'll get absolutely crushed. We'll see other countries like the BRICS nation plus, right? All these nations ditch the US dollar as the global reserve currency. They'll put some other kind of basket of currencies, whether it be gold, silver, some cryptos, a bunch of things. And then, ESDRs, things like that. Then eventually they will have crypto in the middle, and then that will be the world reserve currency. And no one country, like imagine being a country, you don't want to be the world reserve currency, like anyone other than the US, because then you have a target on your back, right? And then you're just in the same problem as the US. So wouldn't it be better if there was no world reserve currency? It was just, a crypto or a basket of things. And then, all these countries are going to have their own stable coin and it'll have to be pegged 1-to-1 backed proof of reserves. And then when people are buying stable coins, it's just going to increase the value. So like I said, I think we'll see probably a big crash in the US dollar as a result of, loss of the petrodollar and the global reserve currency, and hyperinflation more than likely. And then on its, descent, when it crashes, we'll probably see the new system ushered in. They're not going to create a new system overnight. They'll probably have it run parallel where, you'll still be able to have cash. You'll still be able to do this, but they'll offer incentives like UBI, universal basic income, or different types of monetary incentives or whatever, convenient to your life. And then eventually that's what they'll get rid of cash. That's the ultimate goal, because that's the number one form of illicit activity is if you're a cartel or any kind of nefarious activity, you're doing it in cash, right? So eventually that's the ultimate goal. And then these currencies will rebound and will get stronger because, like I said, these stable coins are going to peg 1-to-1, and it's just going to create more demand, more supply and demand, right? Supply and demand 1-to-1. And then eventually these countries, these companies, these big corporations are just going to, reap the rewards. And like I said, it's going to help people who are underbanked, going to get them into the financial system unless otherwise weren't possible. But at the end of the day, it's going to really drive the value of these currencies and really, drive profits for these big corporations, which at the end of the day, if it's going to help governments and corporations, it's probably going to be a long-term, probably going to be here long-term, right?
Yeah, going back like almost like full circle back to Bitcoin price being that the diminishing returns. Could this be a good thing for Bitcoin as adoption, being that it's more stable, less volatile? So there is not this very high highs or like very low lows. So it's like much more usable as like, let's say it's not very stable, like obviously some other fiat currencies, but maybe it's like stabilizes to the point where you could rely on it in transactions. Like basically transaction could be dominated in Bitcoin. So right now, even Bitcoin transactions are still dominated in dollar. Like you would say, for example, oh, send me this equivalent of a Bitcoin for $100. But maybe after Bitcoin price stabilizes, could we see like wider adoption for it for actual transaction, especially if Lightning materializes, like Lightning promises materializes?
I think so. Absolutely. I mean, it's just a matter of time before, we start to see this law of diminishing returns. You're not going to see 1,000x gains. It's like the dot-com boom, right? Eventually, you look at NVIDIA, that's a little bit of a different beast. But, if you look at Amazon, you look at, typically they don't go up. If they're going to go up 100%, 200%, 300%, we're talking years, right? We're talking 100% in a year, but straight. But in 2001, after the dot-com boom and bust, Amazon actually dropped 95% from its peak, right? So that the days of Amazon dropping 80 to 90% in a year or two, right? That's a thing of the past. That's never going to happen again. And it literally take like Armageddon. We'd have to see the world basically, blow up before we're going to see those companies drop 80, 90% in a year or in a very relatively short period of time. So with that being said, Bitcoin, we love volatility, right? That's what we're here for. We want the volatility to the upside, but the volatility is still very much there to the downside. So yes, law of diminishing returns is not as great for investors because you're going to see less upside and less reward and profit, but it's also good because you're not going to see heavy swings to the downside either, right? Volatility moves in both directions. So, there's a little bit of silver lining to it, I guess, in that regard. And then absolutely, if you're somebody who's sending Bitcoin, whether it be through Lightning or through the regular network, sometimes it can take minutes, 30 minutes and hours to send. So you want it to be as less volatile as possible, right? Because when you're sending that money, you are expecting the value, unless it goes up, right? If it goes up, you're happy. But if it goes down, then obviously not really a great solution. So if they can scale Lightning Network on Bitcoin to the point where you got to remember too, there's only like 1% of the entire population using Bitcoin, 2%. So what happens when 50% of the world's using Bitcoin? What happens when 75% of the world's using Bitcoin? If it's slow now, what sort of problems haven't we run into yet, right? So again, that's why I think it's not just going to take one project, one blockchain, it's going to be a multi-world chain, and we're going to need it all, right? And you're going to see different use cases. You're going to see, like XRP and Swift. You're going to see digital gold. You're going to see smart contracts. You're going to see decentralized file storage, right? All of these companies really honing in on that one particular use case, and that's going to be what really drives the industry. And you're going to see, front end, back end, enterprise level blockchains. You're going to see retail facing, right, wholesale versus retail payments. So, like I said, there's so much to really tackle here, and a lot that we probably haven't even really run into yet in terms of challenges and scaling really at the global level. So I think it's going to be interesting to see, how the ecosystem works together, which I think we ultimately need to do, right? We need to realize that there wasn't just one winner in the technology boom and era. There was multiple tech companies, and a lot of the tech companies that were first didn't even survive. So if you don't have a good business plan, if you don't have a good use case, you don't have utility, you're probably going to fall by the wayside. And like I said, try not to be as tribal as I can, because like I said, I want all these projects. I want to change the financial system. I want to, help people's lives. I want to improve my life and the lives of my family and other people that follow me. So at the end of the day, I think we just need to all be adults and try to get along and be as less tribal as possible.
Sounds perfect. Thanks for this conclusion. So how did like people get in touch with you, or how do you like I know you have a YouTube channel. Is there any other
Yep.
channels that you want to shout out?
Absolutely. You can just go to YouTube, type in POW Group, POW Group. It stands for Pursuit of Wealth Group. You can go to X, it's at Group POW, and then pretty much all socials, POW Group, Pursuit of Wealth, powgroup.ca, so powgroup.ca, also pursuitofwealthgroup.com will take you there. And info at pursuitofwealthgroup.com. There's also a contact us on my website, so you can go there. Emails on the website as well. So yeah, I really appreciate your time today, and it was a great conversation. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, it was amazing. And yeah, hopefully you have a nice day. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you so much. Take care.